Welcome to Simon's Story Part 2. Following Jesus can lead you into all kinds of difficult and dangerous places, but then you can find, when you're following Jesus, that's the safest place to be. Facing storms. We threw everything into following Jesus. Andrew and I still had the boat, even though we were fishing for people now, not fish. And it was a great way of getting around as Jesus went from place to place. It seemed random, but he always knew where he was going. It did lead us into some adventures, though. One time we set off across the lake on a calm evening. We were all pretty tired, but Jesus was exhausted. He seemed to have unlimited supplies of energy, always having time for us disciples and whoever came wanting a piece of him. And they didn't come one at a time. There were crowds, always crowds. Most important of all to him was time for his heavenly Father. Jesus would get up really early in the morning to pray, and always seemed to have more energy after that than before. He seemed to have unlimited supplies of energy. We don't know where it came from. But once when he hadn't eaten, he said, "My food is to do the will of him who sent me and to finish his work." Was he saying that his energy came straight from God? But he was human, and this time he was very tired. Anyway, we set off, rowing across the lake with the sail up to catch the breeze and help us along, when, faster than I'd ever seen it happen in all my life lived on that lake, a storm hit us. It was raging, I'm telling you. All hell broke loose. The sail was gone before we could get it down, and we were bailing furiously, but the water kept coming in much faster than we could get it out. We were sure our last moments had come, and Jesus was still sleeping. Somebody woke him. "Lord, save us, we're going to drown." How could he, even he, save us from this? But he got up, and his voice rang out above the din of the wind and the waves. "Quiet! Be still!" And would you believe it? Maybe you wouldn't, but I'm here to tell the tale. They did what he said. The wind dropped to nothing in an instant, and just as quickly the waves were calm. Flat calm. Silence. I have seen winds drop pretty quickly, but even then the waves always take their time to settle. But not this time. Now we were terrified. In the presence of who? What? Who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him. These things are beyond human control. Surely, only the God who made wind and water could have such power over them. After that storm, we got across the water and found a different kind of storm on the other side. This was spooky. A demon-possessed man in a graveyard. He was right out of control, dressed, if you could call it that, in rags and covered in cuts and bruises. He came towards us. We just hung back a bit, let Jesus be at the front. But Jesus ordered the demons out, and they went straight into this herd of pigs, thousands of them. And the next thing we knew, they were all rushing down the hill and into the lake. What a noise they made! And there they drowned. And the man was calm. "Find him some clothes," said Jesus. And soon he was looking relatively respectable. Word had got back to the town, and all the people came out to see what was going on. Now it was their turn to be scared. They knew the man. They had all been afraid of him and unable to control him. And now, like us after the storm on the lake, they recognized a greater power. Here was somebody who could bring peace to tortured lives, but all they wanted was to get rid of him. Jesus had another answer, though. He did get ready to leave, and the man wanted to come with us. "No," said Jesus. "Go home to your own people and tell them how much the Lord has done for you." And that's what he did. So more and more people heard about this amazing man, Jesus. Another time on the lake, Jesus wasn't even in the boat with us. It had been another long, busy day with the crowds that we could never get away from. Once it was dark and they'd gone, Jesus went off to pray and sent us off home in the boat. This wasn't a storm like the other one, but it was bad enough. The wind was straight in our faces, and soon we were rowing our hardest just to stay in the same place. Normally we'd cut our losses and let the wind carry us back, but Jesus had said go, so we kept going. He was like that. He did what he said and kept at it, even when it didn't seem to make any sense. Inch by inch, we might have been getting a bit closer, but we were so tired, and our arms and backs were screaming with the constant effort. We were right out in the middle of the lake. There was just a hint of light coming in the eastern sky, and we saw a figure. It seemed to be walking across the water. We thought we'd put superstition behind us, but this must be a ghost. And they say sailors see ghosts before they drown. Not for the first time, fear gripped us. But then, that familiar voice came clear across the water. Don't be afraid. It was Jesus. He really could make water do what he said. Did I tell you about the time he turned it into wine? No? But you know how he stopped the waves, and now he was making it support his weight. I wish I could do that, I thought, and then a crazy idea came into my head. Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you on the water. Come. Just one word, and I came, out of the boat and walking on the water. When Jesus says go, you go. When Jesus says come, you come. And there I was, walking towards him, eyes fixed on this incredible man. But then I realized this was water. It was rough, just as wet, and just as incapable of holding a man's weight. I looked down, I looked around, and I started going down. Lord, save me. He took my hand and lifted me, put my feet back on, I nearly said solid ground, but it was still liquid water. You of little faith, he said. Why did you doubt? But he was smiling. Once again we wondered, who is this? But the answer was becoming clearer all the time. Truly, you are the Son of God. And the longer we went on with Jesus, the more we saw another kind of storm brewing. There had been rumblings right from the start. They didn't like his acceptance of outsiders, sinners, and even Gentiles. They didn't like his challenges to their rules and their ideas of righteousness. I think, most of all, they didn't like his exposing them as sinners outside God's will. And as time went on, the rumblings got more thunderous and the clouds got darker until he walked right into the heart of the storm, Jerusalem. He seemed to pick the time when it was ready to break. Before that, he said, "My time has not yet come," and carried on his work. And no storm of the weather or the human or spiritual powers could stop him.